for us to be able to play and have that opportunity. Oops, keep hitting the wrong button. Okay, so then there's the question, but Struby, what about biology? Women are weaker than the body and the chromosomes and the whatnots. I am not a biologist. I don't even like biology. I passed my high school biology class by getting extra credit by digging up earthworms. Thank you very much. So, I'm going to refer to an example. Who knows who Catherine Switzer is? No? Yeah, I didn't either. I did research. I'd heard of her, but I didn't know that was her name. She is known as the Marathon Woman. She's the first woman to enter and receive a race number to run the Boston Marathon, and that was in 1967. When they saw that there was a woman, officials tried to forcibly remove her from the race. Like, she registered, and there wasn't the checkbox on the entry form, man or woman, because, of course, women would never enter this race. So she got her number, her coach pinned it on her, she started running. About 3 to 4 miles in, the media caught up and saw a woman in an official race number. And that official, whose name I found when I was researching and finding the pictures, he was like a marathon star in the 20s, and a big official was like, "Yeah, get out of my race!" And then, not that I'm advocating violence, but this guy, like, way to go, this guy. This is actually her boyfriend. They trained together, and he was like, "Let her run." So, but seriously, this happened, and then it wasn't until 5 years later that they officially finally allowed women to run.
When was Title IX mandated, or whatever federally whatnot? Sorry, I asked a hard one.
Anybody? I should know that. I think it was 70.
It was right about
right
then.
around in there. Yeah, like early 70s. Yeah. 72. 72. How about that? Good point, Kels. So yeah, this is interesting. Another interesting fact. The reason, and I didn't put it in my slideshow, but I'm still going to tell you because I couldn't find the source, but I heard it, and I talked to other people who had also heard it. I just can't remember where I heard it. The reason they didn't let women run marathons, this goes back to the biology question, is because our ovaries were going to fall out.
Question biology!
So, I'm not a fan of the biology. I think it's great if you are, get in there and like prove me all wrong, but we're weak or whatever. Okay, so now I'm going to get a little personal. Talk about me. San Francisco Nighthawks, Women Premier Soccer League. So I played soccer all growing up. That was my entire identity, was soccer player. I think a lot of athletes have that as you're the soccer girl or whatever you are. I played a year in college. They cut the program where I played. I got burnt out. I was injured, etc., etc. I stopped playing. I came to Mizzou, loved it here, etc. Graduated, moved to Spain for a year, came back, got a full-time job at Mizzou, and then after about 4 years, they started the Women's Professional Soccer League, and I was like, "No, I'm doing this, I'm going back to soccer, I figured out who I am, and I'm happy, and I miss it, and I loved it, and I'm going to train and see what I can do." So I trained for about a year, and then I tried out all over the country for semi-pro teams. I made the San Francisco team, so I moved out there. And I'm thinking, San Francisco, like I'd been for Pride a whole bunch of years in a row, like I could have these worlds meet, my like queer identity and my soccer athlete identity was going to be great. And I get out there, and I mean, I'm totally out. I live with a good friend who's also a lesbian as a roommate, and I get to my team, and like, nobody's out. I'm in San Francisco, which is where I think it's going to be this great place, and it's this very like, I'm the only one with short hair, which clearly I've already discussed doesn't mean you're the only lesbian, but I was surprised by it. Like, everybody had their ponytails, like, everybody had makeup on at practice, and it was not what I was expecting at all. At all. I did make good friends on the team. No questions there. That was our little mascot, that blow-up doll guy. His name was Just Saying. He has a Facebook page, just saying. I did make friends, and I came out. I mean, I'm out. I wasn't going to go and be closeted, so I talked about it a lot. And about a month in, we had practices 3 times a week and games twice a weekend during the semi-pro season. And so we were always together. And my coach said something to me because Pride was happening. So I was like, who's going to this Pride event and that Pride event? And I was, you know, all involved like I am. And my coach said to me, who is also a lesbian and was somewhat out, her girlfriend would come to games and stuff, she said, it's pride for you every day, isn't it, Struby? It's like, yeah, it is. Like, it should be for you too. Like, there's nothing wrong with this. We should be who we are, all of us. So I'm happy to be an athlete and a queer woman and a feminist and a writer and all these identities I have, an aunt, yada, yada, yada. Like, we all should be proud of who we are all the time. So I was out and I talked about it, and then I kind of heard like rumblings, like Coach came out, so then we knew about her, and then there was like a couple people talked about going out to a gay bar, and it was like, perk, what? I don't know. What do I say now? I gotta go to work in the morning, but maybe. And, you know, we were a close-knit team. Like, we had the whole, sorry that's a blurry picture, but that's us at the huddle afterwards when you all go in. And, you know, we were a close-knit team. Here's the picture of us. We did pretty well. And then more and more people came out. So I came out, like, didn't even come out. I just am out all the time as I am. And, so Coach came out, and then this other player came out, and then this other player came out, and then this other player came out just to me, and then to the other out lesbians. And then by the end of the season, like, half of us were out. And I wish they would have been out at the beginning. Like, that makes me feel really sad for them. But it kind of speaks to, if you have a team that has good reactions and is a safe place, it shows that you can be who you are and come and be out in that safe place. So I'm going to talk more about that in a second, but now I'm going to go to my next team. I played with 3 different teams while I was out there. So this was the semi-pro team. Then I had the Sirens, which were funzo. They were a good time. They were an all-lesbian team. That's who they were. We mostly played indoor. We also played in a couple, like, short-sided outdoor tournaments. There we are playing indoor. We'd get sweaty and have fun and, like, mess around and go out for beers after the game. We were all of age, of course. And it was a completely different atmosphere because the team was all about being an all-lesbian team. And we had a couple of straight players who just, like, thought we were a fun team, and of course we accepted them. But it was just an extremely different attitude because then it wasn't talked about. It was like, oh yeah, that's the Sirens, the lesbian team. And then we were ourselves instead of being, like, identified as the lesbian. It was like, well, we're all lesbians, so she's the corporate worker, and she's the whoever, and she's the da-da-da-da-da. I don't know how to name them one by one. We went to crazy fun things like a tournament called FOB, which if you're a soccer player, look it up, Festival of the Babes. I won't go into the details. Crazy. There's like opening ceremonies of the FOB tournament. It's costumed. There's between games at FOB. There's crazy things happening. And there's me off on my own at FOB in my costume juggling, because if I'm not doing something, I'm off somewhere juggling a soccer ball. So, just kind of the juxtaposition of the 2 different teams, and I think it's important to point out that the semi-pro, trying to do this as a career, a lot more weight and pressure on it, was a very different feeling than the just for fun. The just for fun, there was nothing you could lose by coming out. But in the, like, semi-pro, trying to go pro, trying to make national teams, still playing Division I in college, that made a big difference on how the atmosphere of the team was. In lots of different ways, more competitive, everything mattered a little more, but your identity definitely mattered more. So I've talked about the atmosphere. I also want to talk about atmosphere at large, and then we'll also talk about that in context. But that the atmosphere, so I don't know how many of you are familiar with, who knows how to say her name correctly? Pingeton, thank you. How many of you are familiar with her opening remarks and that there was drama-rama around it? Yeah, so people know that. I heard about it where I work. I actually looked up online last night and listened to her speech. It's a fine speech. I don't think she was trying at all to be homophobic. Okay, let me give you the context. She said, well, the way I heard it from where I work was, oh, we got this new basketball coach, and all she talked about was that she's a straight white Christian, and all we know is that she's not a lesbian. She made it really clear she's not a lesbian. She just talked about how she's Christian and straight. She's got her family and her kids and her whole coaching staff, and they all have it, and they're family, family, family. And that felt very alienating for some of the LGBTQ community on campus, and was it a safe place for lesbians to be in that sport under that coaching staff? And I watched this press conference. I didn't watch the whole thing. I chose around to some clips. And what she said was an introduction to herself, the same way I've given an introduction to myself. She was true, she was honest, here's who I am, here's what matters to me, I'm excited to play basketball, I'm excited to be at Mizzou, all the stuff you need to say that included that she was a Christian, that she was married, that she had kids, and that her entire coaching staff who came with her was also married and most of them have kids. I don't remember. She talked to a couple of the kids. This is where I'm talking about atmosphere and context. We live in a world the same way we live in that sexist world where messages get given to us. So we get the messages that as women we're supposed to be that ideal woman, and that as seen on the video clip, like, we're making these sportswomen out to be not lesbian, not lesbian, not lesbian. Coach Pingeton? I don't know why it's so hard. I have a weird name too. Coach Pingeton was just being real and honest with herself, and that's why it's hard that we need to know, like, as administrators and coaches and fellow teammates, that living in a homophobic society, we have to actively work against that. We have to show that the standard norm is kind of homophobic. The standard norm in the world is not that loving of the queers. So we have to show that even if we live over in this standard norm, that doesn't mean that we fit all the standard norms of not being okay with the LGBT community. So you can be a part of the dominant group and not believe all of the dominant structures that take part with the dominant group. Does that make sense? So I think that Coach Pingeton really had a tough time of it. Like, go Tigers, and I'm excited that she's a part of our Tiger family and here at Mizzou, and I think women's basketball is going to do great this year. Everything's looking good. But there is the context and the atmosphere of where we live. I think living in the Midwest makes a difference. Like, I talked about going to San Francisco and being ready to go, and had I moved to, like, gone to the team in Minnesota, I probably still would have been like, woo, here I am. But that's me, and the context would have been a little bit different. And I probably wouldn't have expected as many out players, which I totally expected, and then there wasn't.